Introduction. Okay, fine, thank you. Yeah, hello, hi
Good.
everyone.
Hi, Laiqah. Thanks for joining us. We'll just now start our seventh monthly webinar. Thank you,
Yeah,
everyone who is joined us today. We have a very engaging subject of discussion today, and we look forward to learning much. I want to encourage all participants to use the chat space to do your networking. Please introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining us from and your organization. We know that many connections have been made on this chat room during these webinars, but we also just want to know, and our speaker will also get to see how many of us are here and where we are joining from. Thank you, everyone who has joined us. We are waiting for many more who registered, but we cannot wait indefinitely because people are doing different things sometimes in the morning. So my name is Judy Kepher Gona. I am founder director at Sustainable Travel and Tourism Africa. We are the conveners and hosts of these monthly sustainable tourism dialogues. These are open webinars, learning spaces where we can share ideas, we can learn new things, innovations that are happening in the tourism industry, particularly related to sustainable development of tourism. There's much that goes on around that is not documented in literature, that is not found in your conventional classrooms. So we started this webinar series as a unique, another innovative learning space to enable us share through co-hosting the series with different players in the tourism industry. They are our guests are trailblazers in their own way, and we will learn that even from our guests today when they introduce themselves. So in just 2 minutes, I will give an overview for those who are new to this topic. Particularly, you're wondering what are innovative learning spaces? What are we talking about? Why are we even talking about it? Before I bring you the practice of Ukarimu Academy, allow me just to share with you 3 slides. Yes, you allow me to share with you 3 slides to highlight uh, some of the things before we have like join us and share with us. So just allow me to share my slides very, very briefly. 1 minute. Um, there we go. I've started with the last slide, but I'll start with the first one, right? So yeah, our guest today is Laiqah Kasule, a tourism program lead at Ukarimu Academy, Uganda. And I don't want to talk about Ukarimu Academy because she will talk better about Ukarimu Academy, a very powerful Swahili word, Ukarimu. But Laiqah will talk about that. Let me talk about learning spaces and what they are. And I have used here the UNESCO definition or description of what an innovative learning space or practice is. I love the two words deliberate and transformative. They are deliberate and transformative approaches to education that go beyond looking at incremental improvements because conventional education is about incremental improvements. But these innovative learning spaces are designed to solve persistent challenges and elevate the quality of learning by reimagining how education is delivered. I love that, reimagining. And I think the tourism industry has a lot of reimagining to do when it comes to how education and skills are delivered and even recognized and accredited in the tourism industry. We still have a lot of challenges when it comes to indigenous knowledge. We have a lot of host communities that have indigenous knowledge, but when they share it with the travelers, it is considered inferior because it has not gone through our incremental traditional approaches to education. So more and more we are seeing these innovative learning spaces that are actually providing an opportunity and breaking barriers for communities in host destination to learn in spaces that are reimagined, where their skills can be reorganized to become useful to the tourism industry. I have put here one example, which is the STTA Young Changemakers program that works with students in universities, provides unique learning spaces. We have at least 5 unique learning spaces in this particular program, and we have seen how transformative truly this Young Changemakers program has been for those students who have been committed in this program. A few years ago in Masai Mara in Kenya, a community school to train guides called Koyaki Guiding School was established with the support of the European Union. And I think that would have been as early as before 2006, around 2004. This school has transformed the lives, this Koyaki Guiding School. It was an innovative learning space where young Morans from the community were put in class without uniform. Their uniform was come as you are with your traditional attire. The learning was made flexible and practical in the field. The knowledge that they have of the savannah was transformed into organized guiding knowledge. They were given an additional profound skill during that training, which is the driving and maintenance and vehicle maintenance. And today, the Mara is dotted with young Maasai men and women who went through Koyaki Guiding School. A truly an innovative learning space. So these innovative learning spaces are desirable and necessary for us today. Because why do we need them? Because they are addressing inclusion gaps in conventional learning practices in the tourism industry. Each and every of these innovative learning practices or spaces that come about, and I think we need more and more of them, are addressing inclusion gaps that we have in conventional learning practices. I just gave the example of how do we accredit conventional or traditional indigenous knowledge that communities share with guests and not consider it as inferior because it has not received a form of certificate or recognition. And if they need a form of certificate or recognition, can the industry be as deliberate as to recognize those skills and recognize them in ways that brings value to the host community? So are they necessary? Yes, we need as many more innovative learning practices and spaces in the tourism industry. Just as a recap, as I come to the end of my slides, just as a recap on the key attributes of innovative learning practices or spaces. Number one is that they are reshaping and remodeling learning approaches, spaces, and environment. They are reshaping and they're remodeling, which means they're bringing down walls and barriers, and they're imagining how learning can be made accessible to all. Number two is that they are deliberately inclusive and transformative, deliberately inclusive and transformative. They go out to look for those who are excluded in the system and provide them with an opportunity. And that opportunity is not, what would I call it? It's not affirmative action without impact. It has to be transformative. The number three attribute of innovative learning practices is that they override traditional paradigms. They override, they can be later on assimilated or included into the traditional paradigms of learning, right? Where you have a topic and subject and all those kind of things and specific timings and all those things. They override those traditional paradigms that are associated with traditional conventional learning. Yeah. They skill beneficiaries to be future ready. They don't skill beneficiaries just to fit in today, but they are skilled so that they are future ready, so that they can serve in that industry today, tomorrow. And that's why I give the example of Koyaki Guiding School, and I say they were not just given a tourism skill, but they were given driving skills as well and vehicle maintenance skills as well. Today, many of them, apart from guiding, you find them working with researchers. They have become the research assistants in the field for people who are doing research. They are leading the community-led NGOs and CBOs. So they have been made to be future ready. So innovative learning practices enable the beneficiaries, their skills to be future ready. Last but not least, which is the overriding attribute, is that they are problem solving. Every innovative learning practice must solve a particular problem, a gap that is available, that has been seen and established within the sector. Now, let us just go into something more challenging for our minds, why we are even today talking about the need for inclusive learning practices, why inclusion is important in learning today. You will find that there is every metric and data around tourism that you can look for. But if you can, and everybody talks about, oh, there's need for inclusion, or people, communities have been excluded and all that, but you don't find any metric saying that this is the size of exclusion. There is no global metrics that measures the number of people excluded from tourism opportunities for lack of basic skills, so that we can say that we are working to reduce exclusion in tourism jobs in destination X from 1 million to 500,000 by this year. And that is the biggest challenge, because whereas that group exists and we talk about them, they have not been measured and they have not been quantified. And that means that often they are forgotten, except for times when we are writing documents. Then we remember that there are groups that have been excluded. I also wanted to highlight that communities in rural tourism destinations bear the brunt of exclusion from tourism value chains. This value of that exclusion needs to be established, and this is a challenge for all of us who are in the sustainable tourism development space to, as we work on inclusion, as we work on these innovative learning practices, we should find a system to also establish what is the value of exclusion, what is the size of exclusion, and if it was to be quantified in whatever terms in revenue, if it was to be quantified in other terms, what would it look like, right? We also know that exclusion has dimensions. Yeah, it's multidimensional. So sometimes exclusion is about exclusion from access to opportunities that exist, like employment. Sometimes exclusion is because of skills. Certain skills are required, and those skills require that you should have been in school in a particular way at a particular time to be able to be considered. You need to have a certificate of a certain type to be able to be considered to have a skill. So skills can be one area, dimension of exclusion. When people don't have skills, they can't enter the industry. When people don't have, communities don't have capital, they cannot enter the industry, because sometimes you need capital to kickstart, you need capital for investment. Sometimes exclusion is seen in decision making, where decisions that affect people in a destination are made without their consent or without being consulted. So that is one other dimension of exclusion in decision making. There's also exclusion in opportunity sharing, right? Opportunity sharing. I have broadened this beyond revenue sharing and beyond the generic term of benefit sharing. There are many more opportunities that arise in destinations that can be shared. And so this, without even thinking about it, you can find that policies can actually exclude communities from opportunity sharing. Business models can exclude communities from opportunity sharing. Communication and marketing narratives can exclude communities from opportunity sharing because of the way they have been presented and the way they are addressed even in communication and in marketing collateral of our destination. If communities are constantly perceived as objects of attraction, then nobody thinks that they have a say in the decision-making table because they are objects of attraction. And every time you see them in marketing collateral, they appear as objects of attraction, and that's what they become. So how we represent our communities, opportunities, communities in destinations can be dimensions of exclusion, and they can be more than what I have the five that I have listed here today. And we are privileged this morning to listen to the story of Ukarimu Academy and how it is overcoming the traditional paradigms and addressing some of the dimensions of exclusion that are prevalent in tourism destinations all over the world. So allow me to introduce to you our guest today, Laiqah Kasule from Ukarimu Academy. I will let Laiqah present to us her CV by herself, right? But like I mentioned, she's the lead for the program at Ukarimu Academy. And I take this opportunity now to invite you, Laiqah, to talk to us, to share with us, and let us learn what Ukarimu is doing in the space of unique learning spaces. Thank you.
Indeed. Thank you very much for the introduction, Judy. Such an honor, a pleasure to be here to speak with you all, especially about inclusion in tourism, but also just about Ukarimu and also just be a part of the network. So very happy, or I welcome you all our participants to this webinar. Indeed, I'll keep it open and I'll remain flexible, and please feel free to ask any questions, I think using the side chat, because sometimes I might get carried away with talking about everything and then maybe miss a few things, but then please just ask a question and I'll be happy to answer it. A little bit about my background. My name is Laiqah Kasule. I actually came from an international business and economics background and decided to pursue a master's degree in tourism and hospitality, especially because I wanted to tackle some of the challenges that relate to inclusion in the tourism value chain. I essentially just recognized that tourism as an industry, as a sector, and hospitality, because the two are sort of intertwined, was an opportunity, or created a lot of opportunities for young people, especially women, to be integrated, to have jobs, to earn incomes and revenues through gaining practical skills and maybe a little bit of soft skills, and then basically being integrated into the workplace and then learning the rest by being on the job. So if many of you are in the tourism sector or in the hospitality sector, you will know that a lot of the work that we do is very essentially or very much about the practical skills that you have and not so much about the technical skills. And when we think about some of the barriers or challenges for inclusion, it really is also about, for example, the level of education that someone has attained, the amount of networks, the amount of exposure, the amount of capacity that one has to actually join the tourism sector. So I recognized, or join employment, sorry, not just the tourism sector. So I recognized that the tourism and hospitality sector gave an opportunity for people who had been excluded either through lack of an opportunity to gain an education or just life and its challenges or circumstances that we normally face, especially as women, but also young people, also vulnerable communities. And I thought, you know what, maybe if I learn a little bit more about the theory or the practicality of this industry, I can be able to design interventions that allow for excluded communities to integrate in the tourism value chains. And that's together with the vision and ambition of an organization called Eye Opener Works, which is based in Uganda and the Netherlands. We implement, or we developed, designed, and started the implementation of Ukarimu. So, as Judy mentioned, Ukarimu is actually a Swahili word, right? It's not a Ugandan word, it's not an English word, it's a Swahili word, and it means hospitality. And essentially, that is what we strive to sort of implement: hospitality skilling, training, but also tourism specific training and capacity building. We are a skilling and capacity building program that aims to improve the livelihoods of young people through, it's a mouthful, yeah, but like I said, please feel free to ask questions, right? But through decent jobs in an inclusive and sustainable tourism sector. Again, we strive to improve the livelihoods of young people, especially women, through decent jobs in an inclusive and sustainable tourism sector. In conjunction with that, or in addition to that, we actually also develop resources, or we have a database. We have open source curricula that we develop and we make accessible for the sector, for the value chain. So for people to use either as trainers or as individuals themselves, maybe the students or the staff that would like to improve their skills. But essentially, we provide resources that allow for the capacity, or allow for individuals to gain skills in ways that they would not be able to gain them. So indeed, increasing a lot of that accessibility to make it open source. So by open source means I don't like the word free, but essentially that's what it means, that it's free, that if you go to ukarimuacademy.org right now, you would be able to download, for example, our hospitality curriculum, or our product development curriculum, or our tour guiding curriculum, etc, etc. So at this point, allow me to also, if I can just share my screen, entire screen. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, Laiqah.
Okay. Okay, so essentially, the challenge, as we all know, is basically around, of course, lack of practically trained hospitality staff. The existing programs obviously lack attention to the development of soft and practical skills. And these were some of the challenges that we harvested from the private sector when we were doing the needs assessment, to understand what exactly do we need to impart on these young people, on these women, or in these individuals, to see that they're integrated or they are able to be job ready for the market. And it was obviously, it came up that in traditional or conventional skilling programs, which are probably also costly for the young people to access, there is also a lack of attention to the development of soft and practical skills. And remember when I mentioned that the majority of the skills that we need to actually thrive or integrate in the tourism sector are soft and practical skills, right? Of course, the entrepreneurial skills gaps, which is product development and marketing, again, as a result of barriers, as a result of the issues or the challenges that either a woman or a community member or community-based group would basically have in order to develop their product or put it to the tourism market so that they can start to earn from it. There's limited access to networks and know-how that can support these businesses, but also underpaid and non-formal working arrangements. And then, of course, the gender stereotypes, the inclusion, and the safety challenges. So a lot of the discussion that we're having today is around almost all of these points, but then especially the gender stereotypes, inclusion, and the safety challenges. Now, when we think of gender stereotypes, I think many of us have probably heard of things like, I don't know, and I'm curious to hear the context in maybe other countries. But in Uganda, for example, you have situations where, for example, the lodges in the national parks, which are kind of more in remote working areas prefer, for example, to work with young men and not women, especially because maybe of the perspective that the environment is challenging for women, and therefore they cannot rely on hiring women. Secondly, if you think of tour guiding or driver guiding, right, you'll find that it's very rare, or there is a bit of a sentiment that is attached to driver guiding that sort of makes it a male-dominated role and not so many women taking up these roles. That's not to say that they do not want to take up these roles, but it is to say that there is a gap, or the industry in general basically has this sort of what can I call it, perspective, yeah, that a driver guide has got to be a man because one, it takes a bit of mechanical knowledge. You should be able to know how to, for example, drive a car in the national park, but then also fix it if it has mechanical conditions or mechanical challenges. And then also when it comes to the safety of your visitors or of your tourists, you should be able to, I guess, enforce that and things like that. And who says that women can't do that? But lo and behold, actually, those are some of the things that you find. When you think of inclusion, it's not just young people and women, but it's also sometimes people with disabilities, right? Where you find that people find that people with disabilities cannot work or should not work or are not open to hiring them in tourism and hospitality roles. And yet, maybe some of these roles, such as, for example, a receptionist or front desk or even in housekeeping, are opportunities where people with disabilities can actually have some work and gain some incomes and revenues. And then, of course, the safety challenges. Again, I don't know what the context is, or I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the context in Kenya and maybe Tanzania and the rest of the world. But I know, for example, that in Uganda, again, attached to the stereotype is the fact that the industry is a little bit, how do I say it? It's a little bit, is perceived as unsafe, is perceived as a last resort, is perceived as as an option for failures, right? And as such, when young people come into the industry, the young women, the perspective that they have of themselves, the confidence levels, but then also the expectations that they feel they are subjected to by the clients and visitors pose safety challenges to their well-being in the workplace, right? So the Ukraine solution is basically, I'm going to go through these very quickly because I think most of the value in this conversation is going to be in the back and forth between us. But yeah, our solution is basically private sector led. We focus on building market awareness. We emphasize developing the practical and soft skills. Actively implement principles of experiential and blended learning. Of course, very important here to tackle those challenges that are affecting people and women and people with disabilities. Practical, active, experiential. In our sessions, for example, we use a lot of role plays. We use a lot of scenarios, and we do a lot of presentations. So we really engage our trainees, or we really engage young people in such a way that even through the learning process, right, they gain the confidence in themselves, but then also in the roles that they're taking up in the industry. They gain the capacity to be able to voice out what we know exists within them, which is of course the ability to be tourism professionals, either as guides, as housekeepers, as waiters and waitresses. But then with the blended learning solution, we make it possible, for example, for that young woman or community group that is maybe based very remotely down in Bwindi to still be able to take part in the knowledge sharing or knowledge gaining activities, even when, for example, they cannot afford to transport themselves all the way to the venue of the training, or just basically based on the challenges. For example, you have a lot of women who are household owners, who are basically the major earners or play a very important role at home, and therefore cannot combine the role that they play at home with the role that they play in their personal ventures, such as gaining skills or trying to start working in the tourism and hospitality sector. We contextualize the content to try and make sure that we are representing not just men, but also women, also people with disabilities. And that boils all the way down to the language that we use, the examples that we use, the imagery that we use. When we do these role plays that I mentioned about and these scenarios, we try and make sure that it is blended, that it is representative of a holistic approach, or of the end goal, which is an industry that includes everyone and does not exclude everyone. So we also really try and create opportunities within the learning experience for the young people themselves to draw up these scenarios, to draw up these situations, so that they are actually more focused, or they are more applied towards or relevant towards challenges, situations, and backgrounds that they can understand. And of course, the open source model makes accessibility for all possible. And then what that means is that trainers, for example, that are all the way down at the region level, or individuals that feel like they can be trainers, for example, are able to access resources that are tailor-made, providing them with, for example, a facilitator's handbook, but also the exercises and the theory that they need to impart this knowledge across. And of course, partly video-based, because we know just how important that is for learning, especially in this case, right? So indeed, we're private sector led, active experiential learning, decent jobs. So these are what we call sort of our USPs, right? And our activities generally include co-creation workshops where we work with private sector partners. So those would be managers, owners of hotels, lodges, tour operators, you name it, any community-based organizations, anyone or any part of the value chain or the supply chain that integrates or employs people. We work with them to understand what are your needs, what do you expect from these young people, or what can we impart on them to make sure that they are employable by you. And this has proved to be very successful, because it's one thing to train young people, but it's also another to make sure that they are ready for the job market. And I think at the essence of tackling the inclusion challenge is the integration in the job market, and making sure that they actually get the jobs, not just have the training and then go on to look for the jobs themselves. So the co-creation workshops play a very big role in the job matching for inclusion. Then we develop the modules with the experts based on, of course, what has been imparted across in the co-creation workshops. We do the training workshops. Now, here is a little bit of also where things become very practical for us, because even when we're doing these training workshops, for example, we consider things such as residential workshops just to make it more accessible, convenient, especially for young women. Maybe we consider things such as providing babysitting services, that is for the young people who, or for the women who might have challenges such as being young mothers, or feed or breastfeeding mothers and things like that. We work, and I think for me this is the most I don't know, the parts that I also really appreciate the most, or value the most, is that we work with individuals who are actually invested in the growth of these young people. So we don't just work with trainers who are going to come and do a training workshop and go, but we also work with trainers or facilitators who are coaches and mentors, and are willing to follow up on these young people, to support them with psychosocial support, to match them with employers within the networks, and basically ensure that they're being handheld or supported throughout the learning process, right? Just so that if anything, because there's a few barriers that come up before the training, right? And then there's barriers that come up during the training, and then there's barriers that come up after the training. What do I mean? That by engaging with young people, women, or people with disabilities, right? At the beginning, there are things that are sort of more generic and obvious, like, hey, the industry doesn't appreciate women driver guides, right? Or, hey, the industry managers don't even look at me because, I'm disabled, or I have a disability, right? And then during the training workshop, right, through that close or active monitoring of the progress of the individuals, things like, oh, by the way, I have challenges at home, for example, I'm a victim of domestic violence, or I'm having challenges with with my partner, or I'm having challenges with where I live and things like that. Those things also come up, right? And then you're able to identify how to support someone through those things. And there's no one size fits all when it comes to that point, right? It's really about an individualized approach, like you approach every person or every individual with their challenges as they come. And that is why the importance of facilitators or trainers that are also actively invested in social, psychosocial support or social work, or just in their communities, either as champions, as mentors, as coaches, is very important for the success of our inclusion initiatives. Um, and then, of course, we do the inclusion specific support, which I've kind of touched upon, which is especially gender and even PWDs. But I think here, what I really want to mention is that I mentioned we're private sector led, and that we try and balance the two, right? You train the individual, but then we also work with the managers or with the private sector partners to make sure that the space within which these individuals are going to be integrated is conducive and supportive of their growth, right? I remember we mentioned challenges such as the gender stereotypes and safety challenges. We talked about things such as sexual harassment, which is very prevalent in our hospitality sector, and that makes it a very unsafe environment or challenging environment, especially for young women with very little confidence and very little knowledge of what the industry has to offer beyond the stereotypes that are attached to them being failures and things like that. So we also really try and work with the partners or the managers to make sure that, okay, if we train these young people, these young women, the way that you want us to train them, with the skills that you want them to have, are you also going to make sure that the environment within which they are going to be employed is safe for them, is supportive, is encouraging? And with that, we look at things such as developing sexual harassment policies. We look at things such as developing employment or HR manuals that are integrated or are representative of an inclusive environment, right? Of course, we do the coaching and the mentoring throughout. So for a period of time, we make sure that we are following up these young people, we're hand-holding them, we're tackling some of the challenges that they're having very, very directly. And as the program or as the training goes on, you will find that in the initial steps, you have more direct interventions, right? Or you have very more frequent, for example, interactions with these young people. And then as they go along, you start to see that, okay, maybe the conversations that were becoming once every day maybe can now be twice a week, and then from twice a week you're having them once a month, and then from once a month you're just talking to the manager, and then from talking to the manager you're confident that, okay, this young person is at a point where they're stable now, but also the environment within their working is empowering. And of course, we do these progress meetings with the stakeholders, which includes, of course, representation from the young people, the PWDs, if that is the case, but then also the managers and the owners of the hotels, just to make sure that we are putting in place the checks and balances that are supportive of our inclusion agenda. So if you go to the Ukarimu Academy org, you'll find you will find our curriculars, including hospitality, product development, and tour guiding. You will also find supporting documents such as our facilitators' handbooks and things like that. We do trainings in hospitality-based competences, that is, of course, housekeepers, waiters and watrons, and then front desk operatives, but then also non-formal jobs such as, even the askaris or the security and things like that. Because indeed, a lot of these people also are very important. I always tell managers, or I always tell partners when I'm working with them, that the beginning of your guest's experience is really at, for example, the gate, right? So even that person at the gate who you might think is just a security man or is just an askari, who is probably a member of the community, for example, somewhere, actually is very valuable and actually also needs to be empowered and needs to be happy with the job that they're doing, to the point that they can deliver the best service. So we go all the way down to that target group as well. very important, because when we speak of inclusion, it's not just young people, it's not just women, but it's also community members that maybe are excluded simply because of the level, for example, of skill or capacity, or even the jobs that they're doing, right? I think a lot of us will know that a lot of us, not just in the sector, but just in general, sometimes tend to disregard people like that or roles like that, and yet they play a very big impact on the service. Then, of course, the female driver guides, specifically female driver guides, because the gap is there. And you know what the challenge is here? The interest within the young ladies is immense to be driver guides, because we are also infatuated by these big Land Rovers. We are also infatuated by the ecosystem, you know, by the biodiversity. We also love animals equally as much. We also love guests and delivering on guests' experiences. We also love our destinations, but we are not given those opportunities simply because we are women. We can't drive. And I think that's really in alignment with the example that Judy gave in her presentation, right? That in order to, for example, train driver guides, it goes beyond just the skilling, the soft skills, but then also teaching them how to drive, teaching them how to do the mechanical support, or the basic one that they would have to do or that they would need. But then also coaching, or maybe pairing them with other senior driver guides for a period of time, just to make sure that they gain the confidence, but then also that the guests of that particular tour operator or senior driver guide also embrace the fact that, hey, we can actually be guided by a young lady, and it can actually be a beautiful experience. And then, of course, tourism product development. Here we really work, especially at community level, to develop activities which we are now referring to as experiences, such as, for example, arts and crafts experiences. You also have your music, dance, and drama performances. You have your homestays. You have your nature walks. But these are basically products or experiences that are brought down to the community level, and are therefore owned by the community, and are therefore very much, by the nature of design, very much inclusive in their value chain, right? And then we also have these business development sessions. Now, this is especially where we work with the private sector partners to embed some of these aspects, such as the decent work, the gender responsiveness, but then also the sustainability. As you can see, there's a picture here of, this is actually a group of managers with two housekeepers that were participating in the same challenge, which is a marshmallow challenge. And if you've had experience of the marshmallow challenge, you will know that it actually brings out a lot of what can I say? It is normally a surprise to very many people, because you realize that in this activity, there is no leader, or there is no inferior, and it's all about the creativity and the minds being put together to achieve the goal, which is essentially have the marshmallow on top. And just through that activity, or through that experience, both, for example, the managers and the young people, in this case, the young ladies, actually recognize that, hey, if you have an opinion, if you have an idea, it's valuable. And then at the other level, they also recognize, that's the managerial level, that, hey, something of value, something that can actually be the foundation of our operations, can come as an idea from someone who we have not really been hearing their voice out, simply because they are excluded. So, with those few words, not few, but very many, allow me to, I guess, bring it back to the webinar, bring it back to you, and ask, or create an opportunity to basically let me see if I can stop sharing. Yeah, create an opportunity to open up the floor for any questions, any feedback, any remarks, because like I said, I think the most value out of this conversation will be in the exchange between us. And I think maybe, Judy, I can hand over back to you to facilitate from this point. Otherwise, I could go on
Yes.
and on and on. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's an enlightening presentation for
Yeah.
many of us who are here today. So much to learn. My greatest takeaway from your presentation this morning, maybe somebody might say, but this is obvious, but my greatest takeaway today is that inclusive learning is accessible learning for all.
Yeah.
Yeah. inclusive learning is accessible learning for all. If it is not accessible learning environment for all, then it is not inclusive. And the
Yeah.
same goes for safe working environment. Yeah, an inclusive working environment is also an working environment that is accessible for all, right? That
Exactly.
recognizes the needs of everyone. And as we say, as you were making your presentation, as like the tourism industry and hospitality needs to work on accessible working environments,
Yeah.
inclusive working environments rather, by making them
Safe.
accessible for,
Yeah.
yeah, a safe
Yes.
working environments must be accessible for all. So thank you for that eye-opening statement that I hadn't thought about it that way before, but today it's
Yeah.
become very clear that
Yeah.
an inclusive learning environment must be an environment that is accessible for all. I loved all the USPs of Ukarimu Academy, from co-creation to working with stakeholders to co-create the learning material and the practicals, focusing on decent jobs, acknowledging that practical skills are important, but probably it takes more than the practical skills. Also, very encouraging this morning to learn is that Ukarimu goes beyond the training to work with
Exactly.
the employers, right? To even help them to come up with policies and HR manuals. I
Yeah.
think that is what you call holistic integrated learning, right?
Exactly.
That,
Yeah.
that doesn't end in the classroom, but extends into the working space. Now, I think we'll go into the, like you said, we need some interaction, some question and answers. You can write to our participants, you can share your questions in the chat. My colleague who is here with me, Dominic, had sampled a number of questions, some of the questions, and we'll highlight maybe two or three. I don't know, Dominic, have we highlighted them already? Um, yeah, I think Dominic has shared three questions. How can these spaces help amplify Indigenous knowledge and heritage within the tourism curriculum? That's one of them. Then there's a question on AI. Can it be used to enhance this kind of learning? And how can training providers in this field collaborate to make a bigger impact?
Yeah.
These are samples from other questions. I think as you take this, we welcome the audience to put in any other questions that you may have. But go ahead, Laiqah.
Indeed. I think, 1 second. Okay. So, how can these spaces amplify Indigenous knowledge and heritage within the tourism curriculum? I think for me, the answer, and again, I'm open to the discussion, but the answer in this is in giving the knowledge or the product owners the ownership of the knowledge, right? When we look at product development, right, when you go down at community level, for example, to develop I'll make it as practical as possible, to develop a music, dance and drama, for example, activity that includes cultural storytelling, right? I think it's one thing to actually impart the knowledge on the community, but then it's also another to actually allow the community to share with you their knowledge and then facilitate them to package that knowledge in a way that makes it attractive, or attractive for the buyers of that activity, or for the buyers of the product, which are most likely going to be the tour operators or the hotels or the lodges, right? So very much by giving the product ownership or the knowledge, the ownership of the knowledge to the communities themselves, or to the indigenous communities or individuals themselves, is where it starts. And then it filters all the way through to the, for example, module development and curriculum development, but also the implementation of the training or the knowledge sharing experience, right? And I think that's where for us the distinction comes in between facilitating and teaching or training, right? Because when you're facilitating a conversation, you're basically allowing for the knowledge owners to share, and then you're supporting them to basically package their knowledge or to contextualize or understand their knowledge in such a way that the market will understand it or receive it better. So I'd keep it at that and say the most important thing is to ensure that you are allowing or you are safeguarding for ownership of especially the beginning of that process to be within the community or within the owners themselves, and not just imparting it on them. And indigenous knowledge and heritage, indeed, because at the end of the day, who is the owner of the heritage, right? It's the community members themselves, right? Or it's the individuals themselves. So I don't know if there's any other answer to that question. I'd also be keen to hear it. But yeah, I think ownership and leaving it at community level or at grassroots level is really where it begins. And then facilitating versus teaching and training and hand holding. Yeah.
Okay, I will
Yeah.
just add on to what you have said, yeah, and
Yeah.
just confirm it. I'm not adding, I'm confirming.
Yes.
I'm confirming what you have said with the practical examples from the Koyaki Guiding School that I shared earlier on as one of the early innovative learning practices in Masai Mara in Kenya. Now, one of the outcomes of the Koyaki Guiding School, which was engineered by the students themselves who are from the community, is that they use that innovative learning space to promote their culture. So they left the school and said they were not going to wear the boots and the khaki. They were going to guide in traditional Maasai attire, right? They were actually, it provided them with an opportunity for expression. And that is what comes out when there is what you have called facilitation versus teaching. Yeah. Because if you were to teach them, you will tell them a guide in Masai Mara wears this khaki uniform, wears this safari boots, and so you're going to acquire that, right? But when
Yeah.
it is facilitation and they're beginning to take ownership, right, of
Exactly.
their destination and sharing, this is where the traditional Maasai attire
Comes.
became a guide attire.
Yeah.
And it has taken root, and it has promoted pride in culture. So as
Yeah.
soon as guests land and they find these people, they can already see that we are in the territory. We are in a particular unique space that is defined by the people. And my
Ex-
guide is an indigenous person from this place, proud of their culture. So that is
exactly.
one of the things that facilitation does, which is different from training. And
Yeah.
this is an attribute of this unique learning spaces, that they allow this facilitation, and there's a lot of knowledge that then comes from the people themselves
Exactly.
that is incorporated, and the end product is a great blend of necessary skills and still has respect for traditions and cultures and the heritage of the people. I just wanted to give that example.
Exactly. And I think it's a beautiful example because what you could also, I think what would also be apparent is that then the guides will wear that Maasai uniform with pride, right? And then even when they're
Yes,
guided, like it's already inherent within them, like they show up with pride, and therefore that generates just the most memorable experience for the visitor, right? So
yes,
indeed, very important. Yeah. Thank you for the
yeah.
example.
Most welcome. Ellie,
Yeah.
you have your hand raised. Maybe we can hear from Ellie before we take on the one on AI. There are two questions related to AI. Ellie,
Yeah.
introduce yourself and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Judy. Thank you, Laiqah. It's actually not a question, something that I wanted to add on what Laiqah said about indigenous knowledge. Laiqah mentioned in her presentation about creating experiences or the community
We have
experiences.
lost you. You're breaking a lot.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, Ellie, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I
You
wanted
didn't
to.
introduce yourself. Can I just ask that you briefly introduce yourself? Because
Okay.
actually, Ellie is one of our facilitators for actually our lead
Okay.
trainer for product development. So I'm very happy to see you here,
Oh,
Ellie. Thank you for joining.
Okay. Eli
Yeah.
Mwesigi is my name. I'm the lead facilitator with product development to Karimu. I just wanted to add something from about indigenous knowledge that is from what Laiqah shared. One of the things that we focus on is creating community experiences. And one of the things that we have looked at in the communities, we are shifting from the idea of the community selling the crafts, maybe a basket or whatever it is, a pouch, to and making it an experience, teaching these towards how a basket is made instead. So when these towards gets into the community, they are instead taken through the process on how a basket or how an art craft is made, instead of them just coming to buy a product. Yeah, that's what I want to add. Thank you.
thank you very much. I think that's a valuable input that actually highlights how we can integrate
The indigenous
heritage
knowledge.
in
Yeah.
innovative learning spaces and
Yeah.
practices. Thank you so much. Maybe Laiqah, you want to take on the AI? How is
The
AI being used?
AI. The AI question. Okay, so there's a question here. How is AI being used to enhance learning? How can training providers? Okay, that's different. There's another question here. With mainstreaming academia expressing caution and skepticism around AI, what's the position of innovative learning models, as in the case of Ukarimu? Now, the AI conversation is a very, how can I say, it's a very new one and an explorative one, even for ourselves at Ukarimu. We're really still sort of learning or sort of exploring what are the best ways in which we can integrate AI into our training programs and our curriculums. But I think what I would emphasize the most is that what we strive for is to create opportunities for the knowledge sharing to be owned by the individuals themselves. So as we explore how AI can basically allow for us to be able to do that, whilst we also do things in a more efficient way, I think we're still keen, or we're still leaning more towards the traditional ways of learning, also just because of the fact that, as an industry or as a sector, we're still at the level where we're debunking stereotypes, where we're trying to basically encourage or improve, for example, even the very basic or grassroots level interventions. And I think AI sort of is something that is kind of growing, and we are learning in that space. But I would struggle to say that there is, for example, a lot, or that we've, for example, been using it to enhance learning. I think here maybe someone who is a little bit more knowledgeable about AI learning would be able to answer this question a bit better. But I think for us as a program, or for us as a project and as curricula, we are in the process of learning how to integrate it. Although we still find that we have other more preliminary issues to tackle, to see, or how to make sure that AI becomes more effective with our programs, right? I don't know if anyone else can add on to that. I don't know, do you have any experiences with AI and how it's being used to enhance learning, especially in innovative learning spaces and things like that? Does it take away from the product ownership, or does it take away from the knowledge ownership, or does it allow for the knowledge ownership? I think I would also be curious to hear from the group about that.
Yeah, I think, like you say, this is an evolving area. I can see Tony Ofunge, you've got your hand up. Maybe will allow you to comment on AI. Go ahead.
Well, hi, Tony here.
Hi,
Good.
Tony.
Hi, Laiqah. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I was to say hi. I'm here. Thanks to AI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, from my knowledge of AI, and thankful to the was his name? Fabrice, who took us through the CBI.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're quite right in saying that the knowledge has to be your knowledge. You can't simply get AI and say, do this for me, and then you do not have an input, because AI is also learns. It's also sort of language learning, you know. It learns as you give it the information, and not necessarily all the information on AI is it's not necessarily authentic. What the application can be for AI would be prompting. You can prompt it in case you have a campaign, for a social media campaign, if you want to enhance your website, and then you apply. The good thing, for example, ChatGPT, you can upload, say, a document that is already pre-existing. For example, one time I was writing, and I always do this. I may have a package. I post it on AI, and then it will say, oh, this is what you want, this is what you want, this is the language. For example, if it's something on Rwanda, I would link the website of Rwanda. And with the chat GPT, it will quickly crawl into it will research quickly what you have input from a link in Rwanda and help you to enhance what it is. But at the end of the day, the end product is yours. You can't simply copy and paste. If you're doing a social media campaign, you may prompt it to say, I want to target people from this persona to that persona, from this country to that country, and it might point you to probably what their interests are, or to, for example, CBI has got some research, and that document that gives you the profile, sorry, of the different markets. And if you want to target that market, you attach that document and link it to exactly what you want, and then it will direct you in the shortest possible way. But then at the end of the day, it is you, like it is you, Gona, who is saying the Maasais need not to wear gumboots, and we need the Baganda to wear kanzus. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Tony. I think just to answer your question even more directly, thank you so much for that sharing, Tony. I think it emphasizes the fact that indeed AI is best used, for example, at this point as an efficiency tool, but not as a generator, right? So we can use it to refine and revise and maybe package, but then we can't really use it to generate the product knowledge. I think what the position of innovative learning models in our case, Joseph, really is with regards to AI is we need to first and foremost actually understand if the communities that we are working with, the individuals that we are working with, especially at the grassroots level, when we look at inclusion, when we look at integration into the value chains, we need to actually first and foremost understand if AI and the tools around AI is something that they are actually able to access, right? Because it's one thing to be able to develop a product, and then it's another to be able to have the internet data bundle and the laptop and the smartphone and things like that to be able to use the AI. It's one thing to be trained on how to package a product, and then it's another to be trained on how to actually prompt AI. So I think we really are at the stage where we're getting our individuals, or we're getting our target groups ready. We're building their capacities, and we're also building ours to get to the point where we can merge and integrate and see how we can leverage the benefits that AI presents for us at this point. And we're very keen or open to learning a little bit more about that. So if you have any ideas, any examples that you would like to share our way, please do let us know, and we'll look into them.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, it's an explorative space for many of us. But I think one
Indeed.
thing is very clear, that AI cannot innovate for us.
No, it cannot.
Yeah.
cannot.
It
We
cannot.
compromise innovativeness if we integrate AI
Yeah,
at its
yeah. It
its full
cannot.
capacity. Yeah,
It cannot innovate. So if there is a generation that will exclusively rely on AI, it will
yeah,
not innovate.
yeah,
Yeah, it will reproduce, right,
yeah,
and
yeah,
refine what is already there. And I think that
yeah,
is one limitation that we can see with
yeah,
with AI. So if we're talking innovative learning spaces, we have to be careful to what extent
yeah.
and how we use AI, because then we will compromise on the innovation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Then what do
Stand
we
the
do
race.
in order? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one last question on how can training providers in this field collaborate to make bigger impact?
Indeed. And actually, I like that question because that was actually where I kind of wanted to conclude my presentation with, to say that as a program, we really are a collaborative program, right? We implement projects with what we refer to as donor-funded projects. So we work with institutions, we work with private sector partners, we also work with basically funders to integrate or implement our projects across the country, but then also across the region and across East Africa. So very directly, collaborations really look, one, first and foremost, very open to collaborations and very keen to explore how we can integrate, for example, with institutions. It's interesting because we've come to learn, or we've come to experience, that non-formal training, which is really the package for inclusivity or for integration of marginalized groups, is not something that most institutions are very experienced with or are very conversant with, or the structures around that are not very the structures around that are not very established. So we find that collaborations with institutions, and for example, supporting the development of their non-formal training programs or of their short courses or short programs, but then also bringing the knowledge sharing down to the grassroots levels, is something that we are really keen and open on doing. Collaborating with funders to, for example, scale up our approach or our results to Kenya and Tanzania, is something that we're also really keen, and we're actually exploring conversations with some of our funders and some partners in those countries or in those regions to see how we can scale up that approach. I think what's also interesting is that we explore collaboration with private sector partners or private sector associations or coalitions. For example, in Uganda, we have Uganda Hotel Owners Association, but then we also have Uganda Tourism Association and things like that. So it would be exciting to, for example, explore something with the Ecotourism Kenya Association, but to see how we can indeed, collaborate together, whether it's through curriculum development, whether it's through program implementation, whether it's through training of trainers, right? Because that facilitation approach in its own is a bit of a different one, right? The active learning methodology, but then also the integration of psychosocial support, coaching and mentoring capacities, and things like that are collaboration opportunities. But then also the integration of AI, digital marketing competences, and things like that. I think we're very keen, or we're very open as a program to collaborate, one, to build our capacity, but then two, to also generate more benefit for the target groups that we work with. So please, indeed, do feel free to reach out if you see an opportunity that we should explore.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that call to action. I think
Yeah.
now that you've made a call to action, yeah, there is not much more that we need to add in this conversation. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were very honored to have you. If anyone has more questions around innovative learning practices and spaces, you have added Ukarimu into your resources. I already mentioned to you two other resources, the STTA Young Changemakers Program,
Yeah.
Oyaki Guiding School in Masai Mara. We have several others that I have come across in hospitality, but the ones that I've come across mainly are in-house programs. by groups of lodges where they run those programs in-house, and they have supported hundreds of entrants. I have seen people who have gone through innovative learning practices join a lodge as a security guard and become a general manager. Yeah, because of making learning accessible. I have seen so many of those examples that I am a true believer that learning should be made accessible. And the traditional, like we said earlier on, the traditional barriers to learning, we should rethink them, because there's a program I came across in India that's called chef with an S, which means she being trained to be a chef. So instead of saying the chef with a C, they have a chef with an S, which is affirmative action for females, young women in India, in Bangalore, and they are getting amazing opportunities to go out of the country to train with chefs in some of the top destinations, in Paris, in other places.
Oh, hello. Oh, I think we lost Judy.
Sorry, everyone. I think my internet is telling me your time is up. But I'm just saying there are many more examples of these innovative learning spaces that is providing possibilities for many. So thank you for sharing with us this morning, Laiqah, and by extension, Ukarimu Academy. And by extension, I wrote somewhere open. What is the
Eye opener works.
Eye opener works. We thank you all for sharing your time with us. Now we know the why, the how, the what, the who when it comes to innovative learning spaces. I now hand over to my colleague Dominic, who will conclude for us in the next 1 minute. Dominic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Judy.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for finding time to join us for webinar number 7 of 2025. Me mentioning 2025, that shows that we've had other webinars the whole of last year. We will also continue with these monthly webinars for this year. So in case you've missed a part of this webinar, you can check them out on our YouTube channel, STTA Kenya. You'll find them, all the recordings for the previous webinars that happened last year, and even this one in particular, which will be uploaded today. Apart from that, I hope to see you in the next webinar, which will happen at a date that we announce. Hoping you learn something at the end of the day. And thank you so much, Laiqah, for sharing your knowledge. And I've just checked your website. There are plenty of resources. So kindly, guys, if you find time, go and check Ukarimu Academy. On the website, you're going to find those resources. Anyway, asanteni sana and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dominic.
Thank you. Dominic, you don't want us to take one group photo?
Yeah.
If you are able to. If you are all able to put on your cameras and we can have one group photo for those who can. Oh, I haven't put on mine. That's interesting. Why is mine missing? I don't know why. Okay.
Okay. Am I leaving anyone behind? No? Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Hope.
Are you going to count 1, 2, 3, Dominic?
Yeah, you just keep smiling, huh? It's very nice to keep smiling.
Sure.
Okay, so 1, 2, just a minute. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Till next time, guys.
Thank you.
Keep it responsible. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you, Laiqah. Bye.